Hello, today we're going to drive south from Mahabalipuram all the way to Pondicherry. But along the way we're going to stop at a site that's long forgotten in the history books, the old Dutch fort of Sadras. In 1498 the Portuguese discovered the sea route to India but held these sea maps as a closely guarded state secret to maintain their lock on the spice trade. The Portuguese Archbishop of Goa had a copy of these maps, and he had a Dutch secretary, and through this secretary the maps eventually made their way to the Dutch government. The Dutch traders immediately set sail for southern India, and in 1602 landed on the coasts of southeastern India. From the 10th to the 16th century, there was a flourishing weavers' settlement in the area of Sadras, and because muslin, which is fine cotton, was prized in Europe at the time, the Dutch established a trading post and eventually a fort to protect the trading post at Sadras. Sadras was an important port, trading not just muslin but also pearls and edible oils, all desired in European nations. The British eventually took over control of the Sadras fort in 1818, but for about 200 years the Dutch ruled strong in this area. Sadras is not on the tourist map, and you might be lucky if you see one or two caretakers at the site when you visit. The exterior is still glorious and a reminder of the colonial past of India and the riches of the nation that the Europeans were trying to obtain. The massive brick walls and the bastions at the corners of the fort are still visible. The inside is, however, mostly barren, and over time the bricks may have been taken away for construction at other sites. There are two large buildings, possibly used as warehouses or granaries. Going into the inside of this granary, we can see the different rooms. It's possible that some of these rooms were either officers' or soldiers' barracks or sleeping quarters or dining quarters or a kitchen. Stepping out of this building, you get to a cemetery where there's still Dutch men and women buried 300 to 400 years later. There's a little passageway on the far end of the cemetery that leads down to one of the bastions, possibly an underground ammunition supply pathway. Several centuries ago, it is clear that this must have been an active, bustling area, with the Dutch and subsequently the British plotting how to maintain control over this part of the Indian subcontinent. There's one more stop we made along the way to Pondicherry, and that was the town of Marakkanam. This has some of the largest salt flats in India and is one of the largest salt-producing areas in the nation. Water is pumped into these large flat tanks from the nearby ocean. The seawater is allowed to evaporate, and in 1 to 2 months these workers manually harvest the salt, creating large mounds of salt that are eventually loaded onto trucks that come by to pick up the salt. Pondicherry, also known as Puducherry, became known as the French Riviera of the East after French colonization of India in the early 1600s. The area, however, has a much more ancient past, with stone axes and other stone tools having been found here going back 70,000 years. Arikamedu, a small village 2 miles from Pondicherry, was an important trading port between South India and the Roman Empire in the 1st century CE, and is now a well-recognized archaeological excavation site. High-quality Roman pottery has been found in the area, including amphorae used for wine with a little residue of the ancient wine itself. Trade between Rome and India at the time included pearls, gold, pottery, different gems, and spices. A number of burial urns for these ancient Indians have also been found in the area, making it quite clear that the burial practices 2,000 years ago were quite different from what is practiced in southern India today. More recently, Pondicherry was ruled by the Pallavas starting around 5 or 600 CE, the Cholas, the Pandyas, the Vijayanagara kings, and the sultans of the Bahmani kingdoms. The Portuguese and Danish merchants started using Pondicherry as a trading center in the early 1600s, and in 1674 the French East India Trading Company set up a stronghold in Pondicherry, which eventually became the chief French settlement in India. Today, Pondicherry remains a charming tourist destination, which offers a unique blend of French colonialism with Indian vitality. We arrived late evening, but immediately set out to explore a part of town known as French Town. Numerous restaurants, stores, electronics, scooters, motorcycles, and cycles whizzing back and forth. But first, we wanted to do what all the locals seemed to be doing, which was getting a cup of nice, hot, sweet milk coffee with some savory snacks. The next morning we visited the Ganesh temple in Pondicherry to Lord Ganesh, Arulmugu Manakula Vinayagar Devasthanam. The temple is in the midst of a busy part of town, with lots of shops lining both sides of the street. As you enter through the gates of the temple, you need to take your footwear off and leave it with a caretaker at the counter. You then move inside to see the glorious temple dedicated to the elephant god Lord Ganesh. The inner hall has brightly colored paintings and frescoes, not just of Lord Ganesh but also his parents, Shiva and Parvati. Unfortunately, I was unable to see this, but there's a magnificent wooden and gold-paneled chariot of Lord Ganesh that is brought out of the temple for special religious occasions. Sri Aurobindo is closely linked with Pondicherry and is a big part of the tourist attraction to this beautiful town. Born in 1872, he was educated in England. He went to King's College and came back to India as part of the civil service at the time. He took a militant stance against English colonialism and was jailed for these activities for over a year. He turned to spirituality, yoga, and philosophy after his release from jail and moved to Pondicherry, where, along with Mira Alfasa, he set up the Aurobindo ashrams for meditation and philosophical inquiry. There are many other buildings associated with Aurobindo in Pondicherry. This is an embroidery center, and this is a perfumery where the perfumes of Ma and the Aurobindo ashram can be tested and purchased. One of the best attractions of Pondicherry is the Notre Dame des Anges, or Our Lady of Angels Church, the only church in Pondicherry that offers Mass in French, Tamil, and English. When Francois Martin The first governor of Pondicherry founded the city in 1673. He invited the French Capuchins from Madras to build a church in the area for the French as well as to evangelize amongst the Tamils. The Capuchins continued their mission at this church for 154 years, till 1828, when there was a shortage of Capuchin missionaries from France, and they turned the church over to the Roman Catholic Church. We were amazed to find a cemetery for the Capuchin monks who had served at this church. This was situated separate from the main church in a side alley adjacent to the church. A block away from the Notre Dame des Anges, we stumbled upon this small building known as the Police Museum. It's a very quick visit to this free museum, but it gives a glimpse of what police rule was like in colonial times moving forward to current day. There's pictures of uniforms and ceremonial lances that were used in the police of old Pondicherry, some of the weapons used, and even some old documents including the transfer of power from the French government to the Indian government in 1954. We took a quick break to get a drink of fresh coconut water that you can get on many street corners in Pondicherry, and my wife is very proud that she came equipped with a spoon to dig the meat out of the coconut after drinking the water. The heart of Pondicherry is Bharati Park or Government Park. This is located on the site of the former French Fort Louis, which was destroyed by the British in 1761. The citadel at the center of Fort Louis is where the park now stands. The park is a beautiful, large, green space for the families in Pondicherry. And at the center of the park is a large white monument with an interesting story. The monument was built by Napoleon III to honor the selfless act of an Indian courtesan who demolished her own house to build a water tank to provide water for the townspeople of Pondicherry when King Krishnadevaraya invaded the city. The same tank was subsequently useful to the French during a period when Pondicherry was going through a severe water crisis. Surrounding Bharati Park on all sides are a number of government offices for the territory of Pondicherry, and there's also a beautiful building for the governor of Pondicherry right in the neighborhood. A block away is a statue of Mahatma Gandhi surrounded by stone columns that look like they were from Chola times. And across the street is the old Pondicherry lighthouse, now replaced by a more modern lighthouse. Spend a few moments to enjoy the magnificent Bay of Bengal and reflect on the glorious history of this region. The Pallava and Chola trading ships and warriors, the Colonials, the Portuguese, Dutch, Danish, French and English trading ships that plied these waters for centuries. We stopped for a bite at what we were told may be the best seafood restaurant in Pondicherry and were not disappointed.
We're in Whitetown, Pondicherry. We've come to Fish Orant restaurant and we ordered the variety prawn platter fried with garlic salt, 3 different marinades here, and then we ordered another platter here with the fried anchovies. Not sure what fish that is. 2 other pieces of fish instead of the crab, eggs, shrimp again, and then these are all curries.
The platter comes with rasam, fish curry, chicken curry, and a coconut dessert. Nothing like eating with your fingers and enjoying the delicious flavors of the food. Walking out of the restaurant, we were pleasantly surprised by a group of local men playing boules, a French game only played in this part of India. A perfect metaphor for how French colonialism blended smoothly into Indian culture in Pondicherry. Thank you for joining us as we try to understand the history and culture of what makes South Indians today. See you next time.